No, I feel the same, man. It was very frustrating. Look, it was a really great event. I don't want to take away from Glover Teixeira. I mean, what a great job he did. He weathered the storm. I mean, he really got it put on him in the first round. I thought as far as the competition, it was really great. But as far as this ideal of letting a guy go out on his shield, I mean, I heard these terms are a Rocky moment. Man, Rocky was in the movies. Rocky wasn't really getting beat up like that. Rocky wasn't really having, years taken off his career. I just thought that it was a little bit rough. And we're a contact sport. We don't make any apologies for it. But there is rules, and not only the ones that are written down, but there's also the ones that are explained in the back, which is if you're a corner, you have a towel for a reason, and that's to stop a contest.
How hard do you think this is for Anthony to get past and for his coaches, or do they have a relationship where they'll get through this pretty quickly?
They'll get through it just fine. I mean, don't forget, the coaches were following the instruction of the athlete, and Anthony told them, do not stop this fight. And I spoke to Anthony last night at great length. He is not upset at anybody. But I'm upset even if that ideal, even if it comes from Anthony. I don't care if it comes from Anthony or not. The fighter is not in charge. And somebody that acts like the fighter is, he's not. A fighter is down here. He's an athlete. A coach is up here. So, the coach has to be the adult in the room. And I'm not really looking to point blame. They do know their fighter. They have been through some wars together. I understand the whole thing. But I am also a viewer that was watching something that went too far.
What you said you talked to Anthony at length. What was his mindset?
Well, he had just shared with me. He didn't point the blame at anybody, including himself. He said, Chael, I saw some of the things you said. He said, I cannot quit out there. That's just one thing I can't. I don't have to win, but I do have a little deal with myself. I just simply can't do that. And but, I mean, look, he was hurt. He's got a fractured orbital. He's got a broken nose. His teeth, and I don't know how many, but came out at the gums. So now you're talking about a surgery on his teeth. I mean, this is a guy that goes on TV. He works for ESPN. This is a very real thing. Look, it's a combat sport. I'm not a prude about this. I understand. But there's also a time where an adult steps in and says, the sport is now done.
Have you ever been in a situation where you were the fighter and your coach either did stop the fight or didn't stop the fight?
No, I was never in that spot, but I can tell you Clayton Hires would have stopped the fight without question. I mean, he'd even done that in practice before. If I was exhausted or overtrained or whatever had happened, he would never allow me to get beat up like that. It just wasn't a thing. I can remember being an opponent in two different fights that should have been stopped. I remember yelling at the referee, and I said, I'm not going to hit this guy anymore. If you're either going to stop this or you're not. Now, these were in the early days before there were commissions. But, that's the way the sport used to be back then. And some of these referees thought there was like a real bravado in letting it go and letting the fighters figure it out. You go, man, we're getting paid $300 here. This is a sport. It's supposed to be a game at the smallest of levels, and it's ultimately supposed to be fun. You're kind of taking the fun out of it when you're falling for some of this hype.